Have you ever wondered who really pulls the strings in the world of finance? It's a question that sounds like it's straight out of a thriller movie, but the reality is just as fascinating. We often think of banks as just places to deposit our money or get a loan, but behind the familiar logos and glass-walled skyscrapers lies a complex network of power and influence that shapes our world in ways we barely notice. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to explore the secret empires of modern banking. This isn't about conspiracy theories. It's about understanding the systems and the key players who have built financial dynasties that span the globe. Let's start with a name you've probably heard, the Rothschilds. For over 2 centuries, this family has been synonymous with wealth and power. Their story begins in the late 18th century with Meyer Amschel Rothschild in Frankfurt, Germany. He built a finance house and cleverly sent his 5 sons to 5 key European cities: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, and Paris. This wasn't just a family business expanding. It was the creation of the world's first truly international banking network. They communicated using couriers and pigeons, sharing information faster than governments could. This information advantage allowed them to finance wars, fund massive infrastructure projects like the Suez Canal, and essentially become the central bankers to kings and nations long before official central banks were common. While their influence today is more private and less centralized than in their heyday, the Rothschild legacy created a blueprint for global finance that is still followed. Now, let's jump to the American side of the story with another titan, J.P. Morgan. John Pierpont Morgan wasn't just a banker. He was a power broker who basically rescued the U.S. economy single-handedly twice. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, America was a financial Wild West with no central bank. During the panics of 1893 and 1907, when the financial system was on the verge of collapse, it was J.P. Morgan who gathered the country's top financiers in his library and locked the doors, forcing them to pool their resources to stabilize the markets. He organized massive corporate mergers, creating giants like General Electric and U.S. Steel. His influence was so immense that his actions directly led to the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve in 1913. The government realized that no single individual should hold that much power over the nation's economy. The House of Morgan, which later split into Morgan Chase and Morgan Stanley, continues to be a dominant force in global finance today. These historical giants laid the groundwork, but who are their modern equivalents? The landscape has changed. Instead of powerful families, we now see massive, publicly traded corporations and, more intriguingly, colossal asset management firms. Let's talk about the 2 biggest names you might not know, but who definitely know you: BlackRock and Vanguard. Together, these 2 firms manage a mind-boggling amount of money. We're talking trillions of dollars. To put that in perspective, their combined assets under management are larger than the economies of every country in the world except for the US and China. How did they get so big? They pioneered low-cost index funds and ETFs, or exchange-traded funds. These financial products allow ordinary people like us to easily invest in a broad slice of the stock market, like the S&P 500. It was a revolutionary idea that democratized investing. But here's where it gets interesting. Because so many people and institutions invest through them, BlackRock and Vanguard have become the largest shareholders in almost every major company you can think of. From Apple and Microsoft to Coca-Cola and ExxonMobil, they often own a significant chunk. This gives them immense influence. They are what's known as universal owners. They don't just own a piece of one company. They own a piece of the entire economy. This means they have voting power in corporate boardrooms across the globe. They can influence who gets hired as a CEO, push for changes in corporate strategy, and advocate for policies on everything from environmental sustainability to social governance. The CEOs of these firms, like Larry Fink of BlackRock, have become some of the most powerful people on the planet. His annual letter to CEOs is treated like a directive, read and analyzed in every major boardroom. So, what does this concentration of power mean for us? On one hand, it can be a force for good. Because they own a piece of everything, these firms have a vested interest in the long-term stability and health of the entire global economy. They can push companies to think beyond short-term profits and consider their environmental and social impact. For example, BlackRock has been a major voice in advocating for companies to prepare for climate change, arguing that it's a significant financial risk. This is a level of influence that thousands of small, individual investors could never achieve on their own. However, there's a flip side. Critics worrying about the lack of competition and the immense, centralized power held by just a few firms. If just 2 or 3 companies are the biggest shareholders in nearly every major corporation, what does that do to healthy market competition? Are companies that should be rivals, like Coke and Pepsi, or major banks like JP Morgan and Bank of America, truly competing if their largest owners are the same? This is a huge debate among economists and regulators. The concern is that this common ownership could subtly discourage aggressive competition, leading to higher prices and less innovation for consumers. It's a quiet, almost invisible influence, but one with potentially massive consequences for our everyday lives. Another fascinating empire in modern banking is the world of sovereign wealth funds. These are giant state-owned investment funds that countries use to invest their surplus money. Think of countries rich in oil, like Norway, Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates. Instead of just spending all that money, they invest it globally in stocks, bonds, real estate, and private companies. Norway's fund, for example, is the largest in the world and owns, on average, 1.5% of every single listed company on the planet. That means the citizens of Norway indirectly own a piece of thousands of companies worldwide. These funds have a different motivation. They aren't just seeking profit. They're also tools of national strategy and soft power. When a country's sovereign wealth fund invests heavily in another nation's tech sector or infrastructure, it builds economic and political ties. It's a way for nations to exert influence on the global stage not with armies, but with capital. For example, Singapore's JIC and Temasek Holdings are known for their savvy, long-term investments in technology and innovation around the world, positioning Singapore as a key global player far beyond its small geographical size. This is a modern form of empire building fought not on battlefields, but on stock exchanges. So, from the family dynasties of the Rothschilds and Morgans to the corporate behemoths like BlackRock and the nation-state power of sovereign wealth funds, the world of banking is a multi-layered empire. It's not a secret society meeting in a smoke-filled room, but a transparent yet complex system where immense financial power is concentrated in the hands of a few key players. Understanding these dynamics is crucial because their decisions ripple through the entire global economy, affecting our jobs, our savings, and the very shape of our future. The empires of banking are not just about money. They are about the power to influence and direct the course of modern civilization. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of finance. If you found this fascinating, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content that uncovers the hidden forces shaping our world. Let me know in the comments which financial empire you find most interesting. See you in the next video.